Everyone, welcome back to Manufacturing Hub on this Wednesday afternoon. Hopefully you guys are tuning in. If you're tuning in live, you will know that we are a little bit earlier than normal, but I think everyone will be as excited as we are to go have the conversation with Kevin, and willing to hopefully change lunch hours and other things around in order to go listen. I will say, like the dozen or two people that we have who watch live, from Europe are probably happy that we're starting at almost 9 o'clock as opposed to almost 10 o'clock, their time. Having said that, so super excited to get into the conversation with Kevin. As I was telling him for the first time, I don't know how we've talked to as many inductive automation folks on the show as we have, and not had this conversation with Kevin up until this point, but super excited to get Kevin on, and we get to go talk about some Ignition 8.3 beta questions. He is the chief technology architect, and he's probably the best person to either answer our questions or gracefully say we can't go talk about that live on the internet right yet, Dave and Vlad. And also ICC. So some big changes coming to that. So if you guys have questions or comments, please feel free to go ahead and throw them in the chat. As I say every week, if you guys are new here, welcome. If you have been here before, welcome back. We're super excited to get into that. And without further ado, everyone officially welcome to Manufacturing Hub. My name is Dave Griffith. Up top is Vlad Romanov. This is episode 233. We'd like to officially welcome Kevin McClusky to the show. Kevin, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for finding time this week.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It's fantastic to be here. Dave, you and I go way back at this point to early ICCs. I was mentioning earlier with had the handlebar mustache going, was glorious. Now you have the glorious beard. So yeah, and I've been listening to the podcast for a while here too. So it's great to be on.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Kevin, again, for joining us today. Before we dive into inductive automation and the conversation on Ignition 8.3, I do want to ask you a little bit about your background. How did you get started? I want to say in manufacturing, industrial automation, but ultimately software, what your career was like, and ultimately expand a little bit on what you're doing today with inductive.
Sure. Yeah. So I went to school for computer engineering, and then I actually ended up in web development, which a lot of computer engineering ends up going into software, right? And so I was inside that world, and I had a previous colleague who'd worked with me who gave me a call and said, "Hey, do you want to try out this industrial software side of things, HMI development?" And I said, "That sounds weird." And he said, "Well, think about it." And then I didn't call him back, and he called me 2 weeks later, and he said, "We really need people." And so this is for a small systems integrator that was in downtown Sacramento, California. And I looked into it a bit more, and I Googled HMI developer, and I Googled HMI, and I said, well, it redirects to UI. Okay, I guess I could do some UI design. And then really, I came on and got really kind of fell in love with the space and the technology, and also all the opportunity inside the space. Because even back then, right, this is the late 2000s, I ended up, it was a lot of the technologies very, very far behind what modern IT technology was. And so the things that I'd been using for professional web development for the newspaper that I was working for, those things were so advanced compared to what was available inside the technology space and the industrial space at that time. I said, okay, I think I can do some good here. So I worked as an HMI developer for a few years, RSView 32, and right at that transition to Factory Talk View, and the precursor to Ignition was using Factory PMI and Factory SQL, and sitting on a bucket upside down programming systems as grapes are coming in to wineries and olive oil producers, and some warehouses and a few other things in the area. And then I jumped over a couple of years later to inductive automation. I said, this software is great. I want to be part of this revolution. And led up a design services team. That was back when we had some level of professional services, which we ended up shutting down because we really didn't want to compete with integrators. We don't do any design work at this point, any professional services. We provide advice for free from a sales engineering standpoint for anybody who asks for it in 1 hour chunks. So you can get some guidance and coaching. But we don't charge for any of that. We don't compete with integrators. But at that point, we tried really hard not to compete with integrators, but folks who said, we want to single source this, we did do some of that work. So I led up that team for a number of years. Then I jumped over to sales engineering. And then about 3 years ago here, jumped over into this position that I'm in right now, this chief technology architect position. And then actually also wore a couple of hats. I was VP of sales for a couple of years there too. So it's been quite a journey with a lot of different pieces along the way, and I wouldn't have it any other way. It's been a lot of fun.
Interesting. I've got, I guess, a couple of questions, but two very brief comments. One, you've mentioned RSU32. I ironically still have customers who are looking into migrating towards Ignition on that side, right? So it is still the reality, I would say, for many large companies and facilities across the world. Number two, I think the whole integrator, as a partner and as an enabler is key in our, at least in the manufacturing space. I think that a lot of vendors, at least in my conversations, don't understand that nuance, right? So I think enabling integrators through your software is an absolute must for the success, not only, Inductive and Ignition, but any other company who wants to succeed in manufacturing. I think you put it extremely well.
Yeah,
But I do want
we
to go ahead.
just a quick comment on that as well. We actually started off when we were creating inductive automation, and this was a couple of years before I came on, but there was a discussion around how do we go to market, right? This is a new software product. This is something that is going to go out into the world. Do we go to end users? Do we work with integrators? Do we become an integration house and we just do all of this for the end users, and integrators are kind of along for the ride if they want to do it as well? And we made a really early decision, even though we had that small professional services group, it was just kind of a stopgap. But we made the early decision that our integrators are our go-to-market, and we want to do everything that we can for our integrators. Our integrator network is key to who we are as inductive automation, and it's been extremely useful and a really good choice just to honor those relationships and the expertise that the integration community has. We can't be experts in everything, right? We're experts in what we do in our software, but we're not going to be experts in every single industry that Ignition can be used in. And we want to empower folks as much as possible to do that dream it, do it tagline that we have. So yeah,
Absolutely.
it's been huge, and the integrator community has responded greatly, and I have a lot of friends inside the integrator community at this point, and it's been amazing. I think treat integrators right, and they'll treat you right too.
Yeah, and I think, look, at the end of the day, results speak louder than words, and I know that pivot must not have been easy. I would have loved to understand and hear some of those strategic conversations, right? But obviously, at this point, you can only kind of learn back from the history. So I think it's incredible what you guys have achieved. I do want to ask you, I guess, a question on the sales side, right? So you mentioned that you held a sales role. Was that intentional? Was that something you wanted to try and do? Was that maybe as a result of, Inductive pushing you to see more of a customer facing sort of a role? Why was that, I guess, the direction you took? And ultimately, what were the learnings from that side?
Yeah, I was in sales engineering before that moment. So I was co-director of sales engineering along with Travis Cox, who's, I believe, has been on this
Yep.
program once or twice in the past as well. And so we co-led that division, which is half sales and half engineering, right? And so we ended up being in a position where we're talking to a lot of different customers and understanding what their needs are and understanding their goals. And from a company philosophy, we've had a very strong view that we're educators and we're not salesmen. And so when it comes to the sales side of the company, it is all about sharing what Ignition has, and it's a meritocracy. You use us if we merit being used. If something else is a better fit, use that, right? We just want to share what we have, and we want to continue working and developing to have the things that people need. And so from our sales side, the approach is very similar to sales engineering, actually, where show off the software, talk about how it can be used, talk about the ways that it's going to provide benefits from the feature set where it lines up with somebody actually what they actually need. And so I was already 1 foot in the door in sales at that point. And then when we as a company had a need inside the VP of sales role to fill that, for a couple of years there, I was happy to step in and be part of that. And it's in terms of learnings during that period, I think that one of the biggest things that I had the privilege of doing is working with some of our biggest customers and some of the biggest companies that are around the world who are using our software and doing really impressive things with it, scaling out to hundreds of locations and connecting different pieces and having their data fabric in place that's going to be pulling everything together centrally, advanced deployments and architectures and all of that. And I think a lot of that had a really good overlap with my chief technology architect role here at Inductive Automation. So I think that that was really valuable. And then the negotiation side of things, we have a different approach to negotiation that most companies do because we have our pricing right on the website. And so there's the pricing, right? And so go buy it. If the pricing works, if the pricing doesn't work, then buy something else, right? Or we'll try to figure out a smaller set of modules that might work for a project, that type of thing. But we're really transparent. And so the idea of a negotiation isn't generally where our sales comes from. It's more of the idea of somebody says, well, I want to negotiate the price, and we say, well, the price is right there, and this is how it works. And we're kind of bypassing that negotiation piece and saying, if it works for you, great. If it doesn't, then you can look elsewhere. But we think we have a really strong value proposition, and we'll let the software speak for itself. And so it's more about the relationship building and the tech support that we have and the sales engineering support that I was mentioning earlier, that architectural guidance and what we can provide for customers given the price point that we have on the website.
And I like all of those philosophies. Again, I will make the brief comment. I think engineering teams are very often far removed from the customer. So the fact that they get to experience a bit of sales engineering and actually have the conversations and understand those pain points are extremely important, regardless, I would say, of their seniority, right? I think in every engineering department that is absolutely necessary because those problems, and as you mentioned, maybe to your background, sometimes you're just an engineer on the software side, on the back end, working on a small feature, so you don't necessarily understand the why and how it's going to be utilized. So I
Right.
think speaking to real customers is absolutely important. Dave, do you have any thoughts on Kevin's background before we dive into Ignition a bit more?
I feel like the three of us and Kevin and I could spend the entire episode going down memory lane, all the way back to the first time he and I met when he was a co-director of sales with Travis. Having said that, if you guys want more of those great stories, we actually had Kent on, Kent Melville. Kent was episode 189 in December, and we went really deep into what it was like to be the third person between Kevin and Travis in the sales engineering division. So if you guys want to hear more of that, I 100% would go suggest listening to that episode 189. It's always fun to go talk to Kent. And so go take a listen to that. Having said that, I want to go talk about Ignition 8.3 beta.
Yeah.
I want to go talk about ICC. We, as always, sadly don't have 20 hours to go have this conversation. So, Kevin, a week ago, 10 days ago, Ignition 8.3 beta launched, maybe finally launched. I think everyone in the community was like really happy. I think most inductive automation employees were probably happy to be able to stop being asked the question, when are we going to go get this launch, go get this beta? But tell us a little bit about that process. I would love kind of your thoughts on what that process looked like. I imagine it took a little bit longer than you guys had initially anticipated 11 months ago when we were first talking about it. But please give us some of those thoughts, some of that background.
Yeah. So First of all, huge shout out to our development team. They've done an amazing job. They got that out the door. It's been a culmination of years of work at this point to getting out 8.3, and couldn't be happier or prouder of them. So well done,
Mhm.
development team, whoever's watching here. So the development process for 8.3 actually was pretty similar to a lot of our other development processes with 8.1 and 8.0.
Mhm.
We have a bigger development team at this point that's structured a little bit more strongly. So we've put a lot of work into making sure that the feature set that we are launching with is going to
Mhm.
match what we're looking for. And we were originally trying to launch in Q1, right? Q1 this year. And
Mhm.
so, this is Q3, so we're a few months behind. But one of the things that was really important to us was that we had enough polish inside the release that we were able to release something for beta where we could get good feedback from the community, where folks wouldn't be running into unfinished features or things that might be impacting their system performance. And yeah, a little bit of inside baseball, because that's probably what you're looking for here, right? We did have, we've moved a lot of the stuff to the file system. And as
Mhm.
part of that, we had a very close connection between the file system and Ignition. We didn't really have a memory layer between, which worked great for Linux. And on Windows and NTFS, it was a bit of a performance impact with specific system configurations, where if folks were using hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of memory tags, probably not hundreds, but yeah, if they're
Mhm.
using tens of thousands or even millions of memory tags, the performance from connecting to disk and writing ended up being something that could really negatively impact really large systems. And so we put a lot of work into making that so that the performance is what you would expect from an Ignition release. So we have 8.3 right around the corner. We are looking at, it is more powerful, and it's going to have a little bit different of a
Mhm.
performance requirements depending on what the overall system looks like. But we've also been able to optimize in other areas, and so that profile is going to look a little bit different. But overall, we're pretty happy with where we ended up landing with all of that, and the extra time that we took to provide a lot of that polish, I think, is really well worth it. And if you were to take the beta, the internal alpha that we had 6 months ago, I think that you'd probably agree if you compared that to what we have here today. So our hope certainly is to release 8.3 final right around the corner here too.
Mhm.
So as long as we don't
Mhm.
find major issues inside 8.3 beta, then the 8.3 final
Mhm.
should be coming up here pretty quick. So knock on wood, right? Do all of those things. But
Mhm.
I am hopeful personally that we're looking at an 8.3 release pretty soon. Um, we also, there's only been a couple of issues. The feedback so far has been great, and everybody who's been providing feedback on LinkedIn, on the forums, please keep doing that. Super valuable. Some of those things will make it in for 8.3.0 final. Some of those will be 8.3.1
Mhm.
or 8.3.2 or other things if they're not critical pieces. And at this point, there's only been a couple of things that I know of that have been really critical when it comes to the final release for 8.3.0, and we fixed those already. So I think we're looking good as of right now. Once again,
Mhm.
hedging all bets. No promises to an exact date, but you can get it in your hands right now and play with it. And does that answer your question? Did that give you a little?
Yes,
Mhm.
I would say for me, yes, super appreciate it. And I would say as an early 8.0 beta user, knowing that you guys spent the extra months to polish it as opposed to we're all kind of polishing it together with the nightly releases, was a positive thing. So I have been happy that you guys have held off going and releasing the beta up until the point of it's mostly polished, right? And we're not trying to do crazy things with the new Power Historian or the new events or the new other items. and then breaking it, and then going and sending a bunch of feedback, and then 3 days later, other stuff is broken. We've all been through those alphas and betas
And it
before,
is
so I appreciate.
it is no
Yes.
longer the power historian, by the way, is internal
Okay.
historian QuestDB, which we can talk more about in a few minutes. I didn't mean to interrupt you though.
Mhm.
No, no, please, please. I was in fact looking back at my notes from the
Mhm.
keynote last year, and was like, we were calling it Power Historian, and I'm not sure I saw it on there. So internal historian QuestDB is what you got. That is certainly a mouthful. Yeah,
Indeed.
that is certainly a mouthful when it comes to the names. But no, overall, I'm excited. I have not had nearly as much time to play around and work with it as I would have hoped, and will in the near future. But overall, very impressed with what I have seen so far. Vlad, what are your thoughts either on 8.3 beta or the release? Any of those?
I've got, I guess, multiple questions for you, Kevin, right? But ultimately, I've been through the forum posts for the release and ultimately the announcements. We've had multiple conversations together with Dave. I know that there's obviously improvements in many different directions, right? So I want us maybe to pick the core three that you believe have the most impact for the end users and see if we can maybe dive a little bit deeper into those, right? Because obviously there's a lot of improvements on the UI side, there's a lot of improvements on the data, and I think all of that is very well documented. But maybe if you were to pick three, and I can start first. So for me, it's a bit more on the DevOps side, right? So anything that has to do with deploying, anything that has to do with being able to back up the projects in a different way, having different instances that store the projects, right? But I want you maybe to tell us, what are you most excited about in terms of like three core features, and then let's break that down a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Good question. At the high level, and I figured that you were going to ask a number of questions about 8.3, right? We have drawing tools, forms,
Yep.
offline forms, event streams, Kafka, historian,
Yep.
all of that. The DevOps pieces of it with file system, deployment mode, secret management, new Siemens driver. I'm actually pretty excited about the new Siemens driver. I work with a lot of customers who are international, and so there is a
Mm.
growing presence of Siemens in the US as well, but especially when it comes to Europe. I generally end up in Italy every year working with our distributor there. That is the question that I get constantly. When is the new Siemens driver coming? And finally, the answer is now, right? So it's in 8.3. Anybody can take it at a symbolic addressing support. It'll support browsing just like the Allen Bradley drivers do. So you don't have to do anything with your Siemens PLC anymore. You don't have to do the logical block addressing or change any of the settings inside there. You just connect up, and as long as you have that as long as you've got the PLC accessible on the network and accessible for communication, you're going to be able to see it. You're going to be able to browse tags. You're going to be able to click and drag and pull those into Ignition. It's more
Interesting.
performant on the S7 1200 and the 1500 than enabling OPC because that requires an additional set of CPU cycles on the actual PLC. And so you're going to be able to scale better when it comes to that driver. Some folks prefer OPC, and that's great. If you want to use that from a security standpoint and from all the profiles there, and if other things are connecting over OPC, you go ahead and keep doing that. We're not going to stop you from doing that. We have improvements to our OPC stack as well, which provide better support with Siemens objects that are inside their OPC server as well. But that Siemens driver, I think, is going to be a huge enabler, especially for folks who are deploying Edge in bulk. We get folks who do 100 Edge installs at a time, and pairing that up with an OPC server right next to Edge in order to talk to a Siemens driver or a Siemens PLC, right? That is not really scalable. If you can just deploy Ignition, do a Docker container if you want to, or just deploy it, bare metal, doesn't really matter to us. But if you can talk to the PLC directly and you don't have to reprogram the PLC to be able to do that, it makes making HMIs based on, with Siemens PLCs in the background makes that so much easier and simpler. Siemens at this
Mhm.
point, I think that that's kind of an unsung feature that I'm super excited about. That said, fill out your full answer. The historian I am pretty excited about as well. So we did a lot of work with what I'll call the ignition historian. I think of the ignition historian as a bigger picture than just what we had that was the tag history providers before. So the ignition historian is a full set of APIs behind the scenes. It's all the logic for doing the things that you need inside Ignition. And then it's also the storage mechanism behind the scenes. So inside Ignition 8.3, we're changing the paradigm a little bit where we say you can spin up multiple historians inside Ignition 8.3. So if you have an Ignition 8.3 gateway, you can have a SQL-based historian, which is the standard that folks have been doing inside Ignition for years and years. You can also have an internal historian where you install Ignition and that's it. It's just built into Ignition. You don't have to have an external database right alongside it. That's what we used to call the power historian. Now we're calling the internal historian to make it more clear that it's an internal historian. And the new one is called QuestDB. We did have one before that was SQLite. We're not recommending anybody really use that at this point going forward. We still have it in there for backward compatibility because that's a huge thing for us. But going forward, anything that's new historian, if you want some historian built into Ignition using this internal historian based on QuestDB, internal historian QuestDB would be the way that I'd recommend. So small to medium architectures, spinning that up, it's all built in, it's all in the same box. You no longer have that external dependency unless you want it or you need it for something, and certainly you can still have SQL databases connected to.
Quick question. I guess you probably have this data or information, but what's the use case of having multiple historians other than, I want to say like multiple integrators doing similar or slightly different work and then spinning up their own historians or databases? Is there something specific you need to address by spinning up more of them?
Not really. So there's the idea that you have and that's not entirely true. So most of the time, I think folks will have one historian inside their Ignition gateway that's configured. We do have a few different types of internal historians that are basically query only, that you can connect Ignition to a CSV, for example, and use that as a data source, or you can connect it up to other pieces that you might have connected and use those as data sources where it's going to be read only to database tables, for example. And so that type of thing allows us to have these multiple different historians that are sources for your data. I do think that occasionally folks might have separate ones. And so you might have a separate application that you're building, a separate project inside Ignition, and then you're an integrator, you're deploying this, you want to have your data segregated from other data that might be inside there. And so you have your own historian. And definitely folks, if they're rolling things up to a central location, normally we'll have a historian that is in the separate locations that are rolling up. So that could be separate sites that are rolling up to central location with the built-in store and forward, all of that, or it could be Edge. So Ignition Edge, IoT, your panel, both of those have a built-in historian that'll do 35 days or 10 million records, and all of those will push up in the exact same way, store and forward, and that uses this new internal historian QuestDB as the backend for all of that history. It's extremely performant locally. It'll do, and don't quote me on these numbers, I know this goes on the internet and it lives forever, but we have some internal benchmarks that are subject to change before the 8.3.0 release, but that'll go 100, 200,000 records per second into this. Querying's a little bit slower than that. It's pulling back data over that period of time, but yeah, we'll be releasing inside the performance guides that we have with Ignition 8.3.0 final. We will have some performance guides for all of this where the historian guide that we have will be updated with this information, and then we'll probably continue to release additional benchmarks as time goes on, as well as we're trying to put those tools inside the hands of any engineers who really want to optimize their system and kind of know what they can expect.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think it's super interesting, especially now with the, I want to say, advancements in AI. I think there's definitely groups who are looking to stand up, proof of concept projects or just absorb a lot of data into whatever source. So they will be trying to do that, I want to say, in parallel with the current systems, depending on what the architecture
Yeah,
looks like, of course. So I think it
absolutely.
is an important feature.
Yeah, one other quick note that's worth mentioning here is that the SQL historian is not going anywhere, and in fact, we see that as a continuing, very important historian going into the future too. So what folks have been doing for years and years inside Ignition, that is supported going into the future. And if you want a data storage that's outside of Ignition, which a lot of folks do, it is a fantastic option for that. So the performance is about the same in 8.3 as it was in 8.1 and 8.0. So you're not really going to see much in terms of performance differences, but you are going to see additional tools for all historians that are going to be rolled out here over the course of the next few months and years. We have some archiving tools that are going to be rolled out. We have the internal historian QuestDB is going to have some redundancy tools that are rolled out there as well, so you can have full redundancy between a primary and a backup Ignition gateway. And then there's multiple different sets of features that we have imagined going into the future that's all backed by this. And as a side note, for the real deep engineers, propeller heads, if you will, which I say fondly because I consider myself one. You can get the Ignition SDK, and with Ignition 8.3, you can create your own historian relatively quickly. So if you know Java, you can import that. We did a lot of work on that SDK, on the API, to make that much easier to be able to just spin something up relatively quickly. So if you've got a new historical storage backing that you're looking for, you'll be able to get that potentially from developing a module. And then we are continuing to add more going into the future as well. So we have QuestDB internally. We're going to support external QuestDB. We're looking at supporting all of these time series databases, or a variety of them that are out there. I don't want to mention specific names because it's subject to change for the list, but if you can think of your favorite time series database, there's a good chance that at some point in the future, Ignition's going to have support for that as a historian as well. So I wouldn't see the internal historian QuestDB as the be all and end all. I would see this as the foundation for where we're going forward from this idea that a historian is something that is flexible and easy to use and can continue to evolve as time goes on. We've got the foundation in place for everything, and we've got fantastic options today. And then in the future, we're going to continue rolling out more options.
I will say, Kevin, on your earlier comment, we'll probably expand a little bit on the migration side, because that's a question on everybody's mind, right? How do we, I guess, move to 8.3, or what does the cycle look like? And I think we had this conversation at the previous ICC. There were some very good graphs, or promising graphs, on what the life cycle looks like. Before we get into that, though, I do want to ask you, I guess, for the third item, and maybe I want to nudge you a little bit towards the entire Kafka and DevOps integration. So curious to understand maybe some of the thinking behind that, but also, I think, again, it's important to recognize that Ignition is in so many places. Some engineers might not even see where those use cases truly shine. So I guess, curious to hear maybe if you have some way to explain, what that unlocks for certain customers, at least from your conversations.
Yeah, and those are actually two different topics, Kafka versus DevOps. They're actually pretty separate inside Ignition 8.3. So if you'll allow me four things, then
sure,
I can dig into both of them.
I guess having been a bit on the IT side, I bundle both of them usually together, because Kafka is rarely discussed on OT. But let's do 4 topics.
Right. So yeah, I'll start with Kafka and event streams as well. So we have this new module coming out that's called Event Streams. And honestly, we created it because we were creating a Kafka module, and we realized that we need first-class tools inside Ignition to be able to handle events in a repeatable, scalable way where it is centrally manageable and folks can just create stream handlers inside Ignition. And with Kafka, without event streams, it would be kind of fitting a square peg into a round hole. You'd be able to get messages, maybe subscribe to some topics, but you wouldn't be able to really process it in a way that these type of streaming frameworks expect you to process them. And so I actually, a little bit of a side note, I created or worked with creating one of our first Skunkworks Kafka modules. So pretty connected to Kafka. I'm pretty involved with understanding how those pieces work and how the producers and consumers work, and getting the offsets right and all of that. The inside Kafka, once we decided we were creating the event streams module, we realized that this could be useful for everything inside Ignition. It's not just a Kafka thing, and it could be useful for anybody who's not even using Kafka or not connected to Kafka at all. And so what event streams gives you is a way to process your events. You've got a tag change event. You've got a something that's coming from a REST API that is being pinged from an external system. You have an alarm that kicks off. You've got button press on a screen that somebody does. Any of these can be events that kicks off an event stream. And so it gives folks a centralized place to be able to manage how events work inside Ignition. So if you're not thinking about Kafka at all, if you're thinking of a standard Ignition application, event streams is going to be super useful. And yeah, I'm very excited about it for that reason. I think it's going to change how some folks end up designing, making people more efficient, and then also making things more maintainable instead of searching through a big script library or searching for all these tag change scripts that might be in different places. Anything that you expect to be an event, you could have going through event streams. And so event streams is foundational, and then Kafka is a nice module that plugs right into it. And so you can plug those Kafka subscriptions, anything that you subscribe to, your consumer for inside Kafka, you're going to be able to register Ignition as a consumer and then go through. Ignition can also be a producer, so it can come from one side and go out the other side. And you could have just Kafka processing from other systems that are, as you said, are more on the IT side. So we have some really big customers who have standardized on Kafka across their entire digital infrastructure when it comes to application communication. Anything they build themselves internally, anything that has an IT produced simple view that is custom built website, or it could be React or could be something else. They're consuming from Kafka topics, and they want to get information there. And they're also sending information back. And so anything that folks are doing on that Kafka side, now you can just plug into Ignition. Ignition will process those requests, send them back, or Ignition can produce data that's used inside these Kafka streams. So really, really neat. I think we have NDAs with all of them, so I can't tell you exactly what they're doing. I was running through my mental list here, but regardless, I think that's going to be super useful for people with Kafka. And then the DevOps side, I've told you that I'm excited about a number of things with 8.3 already, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I think that that's one of the biggest changes overall to Ignition that we've basically ever done. And so this sets us up as for the foundation of going into the future to be built in a way that modern companies using modern development stacks and modern technologies are able to have Ignition as part of their overall technical, tech ecosystem that's inside the company, and really be able to start using Ignition as the cornerstone of all of their industrial data, all of their industrial processing, Event Streams allows for one piece of that, right? And then the way that we've changed things to be file system storage based inside Ignition, that allows for change tracking, connect up to Git, GitHub, GitLab, whatever you have, and automatically commit changes. Everything's JSON. There's a little bit of XML inside Vision, but almost everything's JSON inside there. Both are text-based formats, right? And so you can see the changes that are happening between things as people make modifications. You can potentially roll back. You can use that for deployment. And then we have these deployment modes, which are extremely useful for folks who are doing a proper DevOps type of setup where you have a development gateway, you might have a testing or QA gateway, or you might have 2 or 3 for different things. And then you could have a single production gateway, or you can have a production gateway at each site and you're doing development centrally. It doesn't really matter how you have it set up. These deployment modes let you label an Ignition gateway, do your configuration for the entire Ignition gateway, the one that you're on right there. You can do that full configuration like you've always been able to do. But then you can also, on that development gateway, you can specify what your QA gateway is going to look like. You can specify what your production gateway is going to look like. And if you have a database connection, this is a good example, right? It's probably going to be a different database connection string, maybe different credentials, maybe different URL that you're connecting to different databases for each of those environments. You can set those up in a single Ignition gateway, in single spot, single repository that you're going against when you're connected up to Git, and set up what it looks like for QA, set up what it looks like for production. You get a real nice interface where you can see all of these and see the different configurations right there when you're doing development. And then when you roll it out to the different gateways, you don't have to change anything. You don't have to go in and change your device, connection paths. You don't have to go in and change anything from, if you're setting up separate historians in the different places, whatever it happens to be, that is all inside that single place, single configuration. So that's one of the big pain points that people have today with 8.1. Lots of folks are doing these types of things in 8.1, but it can be a lot of work to actually do a deployment, to move from dev to QA, from QA to production. And basically this makes it so it can be almost zero work to do that.
Right.
Single button press, get that out, which makes things so much easier, so much faster, and plays right in with things like Docker deployment and Kubernetes deployment. We've got Helm charts that are coming that are going to be, it's basically a Kubernetes operator. If you don't know what that is, if you don't know what Kubernetes is, I can't help you there. Figure it out. But
that's a whole
Kubernetes
other
is a way to take
conversation.
multiple. Yeah, it is. But it's a way to basically manage all your Docker containers or other format containers in a way that's scalable and simple to use and super neat technology. But yeah, so all of that stuff and the secrets management ties in with that as well, where basically usernames and passwords are encrypted on disk, and then we are going to have support for externalization of those with things like HashiCorp Vault, where you can store your secrets, your username, password, your passwords for your databases and other things in an external system. So if you're ever making a gateway backup or you're storing things to source control, you're not storing passwords in there, even if they're encrypted and salted, right? It's still safer to have those outside of Ignition.
Absolutely. I think all of those are exciting. I guess a couple of comments. One, for non-longtime listeners of Manufacturing Hub, forcing our guests to pick 4 things out of a list of 3 things is a very Manufacturing Hub thing to do. So thank you for coming up with a list of 4 on those 3 choices, Kevin. I agree. I think you almost can't go down the list of things that one is excited about without going and saying, and this, and this, and this. Speaking of that, we've got a couple of folks in the comments. Chris Taylor is saying that the build test deploy should not be underestimated. It's going to remove a lot of the risk in production, and he's loving playing with it. He says he's also looking forward to the Siemens driver. We've got Derek Chambers, who continues to post pictures of him being a wizard. Although, Derek, my man, it looks like you've aged significantly wizard year to wizard year. I feel like wizards are supposed to age significantly less than what we are seeing based upon the pictures and you running around. I am very excited to see what Derek is going to do this year.
Derek posted a picture of me, too. Sorry to talk over you.
No, I feel like Derek is setting himself up of ICC 2027 or 2026. He's just gonna like come back home and just go start the next year's project. So I'm excited to see that. I think it was that picture of you, Kevin, and a couple of other people, and a very wizardly wizard standing next to you guys, getting ready to go talk about the build-a-thon.
Yeah, yeah, I thought that was great.
So I think 8.3 is super exciting. I feel like we could go talk for 6 more hours. I do want to go talk about ICC. Before we do that, we'd love to have you back on or someone back on to come talk about 8.3 when it officially launches into production at some point later this year, of which we promise to ask no more than 6 times. Is it ready to go launch yet? Having said that, we are 6 or 7 weeks away from the Ignition Community Conference. We're moving facilities, which is like so exciting, and then also just like absolutely terrifying because we're not sure what to expect or where the bathrooms are or any of those things. Kevin, go give us the overview. Go tell us your thoughts on ICC, items that you're excited about, maybe some of the changes that are happening this year,
I
please.
think most likely most of the folks in the community are smart enough to be able to adjust to new bathroom locations. So I'm a little less worried about that piece. But ICC this year is going to be the one to be at. It is there's so many good things that are happening this year, and I am extremely excited about ICC, right? 8.3 and ICC, you picked the two topics that I'm the most excited about right now, and you nailed them. So ICC is, in addition to being at the new venue, and we have over 50 speakers and 40 sessions or so, and we have some highlights from a lot of different things. We also have been able to do so many things that we've wanted to do for a long time, and we just haven't had the space for. But in addition to that, probably the thing I'm the most excited about for ICC is being able to share some of the new things that we are doing from kind of a packaging standpoint, from the benefit from 8.3 going into the future, the new technologies that are there. I'm seeing it as a bit of a paradigm shift in terms of where Ignition was to where Ignition is going, and what the future holds for where the next generation of projects, SCADA projects, IoT projects, HMI projects, MES projects, all of these things that you can do inside Ignition, UNS, industrial data fabrics, all of those things, how this big picture really enables and benefits companies going into the future. I am so excited about that, and being able to share that knowledge and being able to talk to a lot of folks about where they're at right now and how do they get to the next step. So that's actually probably what I'm most excited about. But all of these things that we're able to do now that we weren't able to do before is super cool too. And we're getting closer and closer to sold out on the hotel room blocks. If people want to come, I'd say absolutely, get your ticket right now. We'd love to have you. The things that I'm the actual things that I'm the most excited about that we're doing, that we're adding to it. We have this place called the Hub. That's going to be a dedicated room, and it's going to have IA employees, tech support, training, and product managers there. And we are inviting the entire community to come and give feedback. Let us know how things are going. Talk to our product managers directly. Talk to our entire community directly. In addition to just passing people in the hallway that have an Inductive Automation shirt on, come and actually talk to us and the people who are making the decisions as to what's going into Ignition yet, and the teams that are responsible for that. Give us your feedback. You've got a direct line back to Inductive Automation at this point that we've never had before. So we're going to have that staffed for the whole conference. We are also setting up a place called the CoLab. And this CoLab has two different purposes. One of them is so if you've ever been in a session and you see somebody talking in that session and they show something off, and you're like, man, I really wish I could talk to that person afterward, or I really wish that I could see that live, or let me see the Ignition designer, let me pull this up, let's do a deeper dive. We have a space for that. It's space for speakers, exhibitors. It's kind of like a science fair, if you want to think of it that way. And so after sessions, you'll probably hear some of the speakers say, come meet me in the CoLab. I'll be happy to talk to you about these things, and we can do a deeper dive, and we can expand on this. And you could ask any questions we didn't get to in the Q&A. So that's going to be really cool. And inside the CoLab, we also have these community design challenges that are going to be for everybody who is attending. So you can go in day 1, day 2, day 3, and say, give me your challenge of the day. And we're going to have 3 different challenges for the 3 different days. They're about 30-minute challenges. So for anybody who's competitive inside this community, if you want to come in and you want to try your hand at these challenges and see if you can complete them and score some points, you'll be able to do that. When you come in, you'll be assigned a team randomly. There are 3 different teams. And then you are playing for that team the whole rest of the conference. So if you go in day 1 and you get assigned Team Orange, and then you come in day 2, you're going to be making points for Team Orange. Day 3, Team Orange points. And then at the end of the conference, we'll talk about which team won. So that'll be fun too. So we also have additional spaces. We have sales meeting rooms that are actually dedicated for that, distributor meeting rooms. You can book appointments with anybody who is your... Oh, sorry, I hit space and it muted me. You can book with whoever's the main contact in Inductive Automation or with your distributor. And we've got more space for table talks. We have these community huddles as well that are happening. We have, there's a few sessions that are going to be fun to highlight. Toyota's coming and talking. They're presenting a session. Tetra Pak is presenting a session. Regeneron Pharmaceuticals, Hebronsoft. That's just a short list. Hebronsoft is an amazing organization that if you don't know who they are, they do a lot of work with youth in Ukraine, actually have been affected by the war, in terms of creating an environment where they can learn skills inside the automation space, and they can then start delivering projects and making an impact inside the community. And so it's a great organization, and it's going to be great to have them talking during this as well, sharing some of what they're doing. We, of course, have the Discovery Gallery with 18 different winners who have done some fantastic projects. And then it wouldn't be complete without mentioning both the Stata Arcade, which is kind of a game arcade. We're actually bringing in pinball machines and some other pieces this time too, and Prove It. So we're having a mini Prove It at ICC, which you guys may already be familiar with. Prove It is a conference that we were super excited to be at earlier this year. That's put on by that community. And so we have basically taken the idea that we love the concept of people proving out what solutions they have with Ignition. So these 30 or so exhibitors that we have at ICC, they're going to be able to come and I think we've got 15 or 18 of them signed up to actually give Prove It sessions to be able to talk about how their solution works, connect up to a unified namespace, connect up over MQTT Sparkplug, pull in data, use it inside their solution, possibly write back to the data, tie into this idea of everybody's connected to the same virtual factory, virtual plant floor, and everybody's able to really show off what they're doing in a way that is going to demonstrate that everything is a value add, is something that ends up increasing the value of what folks would be using them for. So if you're sitting out there as an integrator and you want to think about using some of these technologies that you see in the exhibitor booth, if these folks have a Prove It session, you can go to that session. It'll be a bunch of sessions that are running right alongside the other sessions there, full 3 days of these sessions, and just check out the ones that you're interested in. see if it looks like that solution actually would work for you on it, what you want it to work like.
Question on that.
Wow.
Oh, go ahead, Dave. Go ahead.
That was a
I
lot.
think we should just commend. I think we should just commend Kevin for getting that all in like one breath. I don't know if you like had to take some time to prepare to say for all of that, but I guess on my side, wow, like you had me at the CoLab, right? Of hey, we can actually go have a place to talk to people, and then there were like 25 other things. But we'll let Vlad go throw his thoughts in. I just want to say that is impressive. I am very excited for all of these new additions. I have no idea how I'll now go try to spend no extra free time beyond the things that are already booked and planned to go see all of those, but very exciting nonetheless.
Yeah, a couple of questions from my side, Kevin. Number one, so Dave and I actually attended Prove It, the main conference in February. So I'm curious, I guess, just to be clear for the listeners, is it the Ignition exhibitors who are going to be building on top of the virtual factory, or there's going to be other, I guess, like external partners? Because we saw, I guess, an array of different, I want to say, companies at the main Prove It conference. So I guess, could you explain a little bit more exhibitor versus Prove It, I want to say, designer, so to speak? Like, has that been confirmed on the main website?
Yeah, so on the main website, I don't think we have it listed out yet.
Okay.
There are a couple that we are still confirming along in terms of if they're finalized for things or not. What I can mention,
Gotcha.
I can I've just pulled up a spreadsheet that we have here. I can mention a few highlights or folks who I can tell you for certain are going to be there. HiveMQ, HiByte, Flow Software, Sepasoft, who does all the MES modules, of course. Sorba AI, SiteSync, Kanoa, Opto22, Axelon, Thread, and Atana. Those are the ones who, and then we have about 6 others who I think are going to be confirmed here shortly. So that's going to be a subset of the exhibitors. So I believe everyone who is at Prove It is going to be an exhibitor, but not everyone who's an exhibitor has opted into doing the Prove It section.
Understood. Yeah, I guess as we get closer, there'll be like a full schedule of those sessions. I would assume they've already started building, but it sounds like there might still be some.
I would hope so.
Well, it sounds like there would be maybe some additions, but anyways, best of luck, I guess, to them to be able to put up a solution within the next 4 weeks. Right? It is not an easy feat always.
They've been working on it for a while, so yeah, we've been talking to them. They're already locked in. They know, I believe they know what slot that they're in, or have some sense of that. But yeah, and the other folks who we have yet to confirm are also working on this, as far as I know. So it's going to be yeah. We attended, we exhibited at Prove It, right? We were one of the folks who got up there to prove it. So we love the concept. We love the idea of put your money where your mouth is, right? Rubber meets the road, whatever analogy that you want to use. This is where it's going to happen, and you're going to be able to see for certain that these things are working how they say that they will.
Gotcha.
Absolutely.
I had I guess a second question. Go ahead, Dave. Go ahead.
Okay, but if I may, Vlad, I would say Travis and Arlen on the Prove It session was exactly what you would expect, cranked up 100% just on steroids. When we saw them on February, so I am super excited to go see what happens on the Prove It side, and I'm in fact excited to go watch the exhibitors go through the process of doing it, so you can go see the solutions in action. I maybe would love at some point in the future if you also had a track where you had a whole bunch of integrators who also got to go show their best and their brightest types of solutions. So I think that would be a lot of fun. We are constrained on time.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Hear you loud and clear there. I would love that type of thing too. I can tell you that we are considering what our options are there. So know that leadership at IA is definitely has some considerations around that idea, because we love what the integrator community is doing. It's it's part of our passion. It's why we exist, right? And so being able to highlight some of those things beyond the Discover Gallery, which definitely highlights a lot of them really
Yes.
well, but highlighting things that are kind of productized types of solutions from integrators. I'd love to be able to find a good way to do that.
I agree. I would say the positive side of this year is the fact that we won't be able to sell out tickets, unlike the last 10 or so years in which we've sold out tickets
We might. I
every
mean,
single year.
there's a chance. So we have I believe we have 1,500 is more or less where the cap is. We'll have to cap it at some point,
Mhm.
but we don't have to cap it until it gets closer. But the hotel blocks
Okay.
are going to sell out, and then that would mean folks need to be a
Mhm.
little bit farther away. So probably be the folks in the next week or maybe 2 weeks who buy tickets who are able to get those close
Mhm.
hotel blocks. But yeah, we'll definitely it's the biggest conference ever. It's going to I've seen some of the mock-ups for how they're doing the stage space and all of that. It's a little intimidating with just
Mhm.
how big it is, right? But it's going to be a
Yep.
fantastic crowd.
Absolutely. I do want to go make sure that we talk a bit about the
Yes.
build-a-thon as we're coming close on time. And I guess I want all of our, especially live listeners, to go look over Kevin's shoulder, because you can see, and I don't know which year that water bottle is from, but we can definitely see that's an ICC water bottle. And that appears to be a 2015 Firebrand Award. And that appears to be a Team Kevin headband, harkening back to the first year or first years of first years of the build-a-thon. So I'm hoping your desk is always like that. But if it's not always like that, thank you so much for thank you so much for going and putting that out. I do want to talk a bit about the build-a-thon, there is, if you guys are watching live today, Wednesday, August 6th, there is a massive live stream tomorrow, Thursday, August 7th, on YouTube that Kevin and Kent and Travis, I think all three of you guys will be on moderating, in which we have a significant cut down from the 27 teams to, do we cut down to two, or is there a
We
middle
cut
cut
down to
down
2,
as well?
straight to 2.
Okay. I remember every year going and watching the updates of, hey, these teams are in the lead. And then I feel like most years someone jumps ahead and manages to finish first or
Yeah.
second as part of that. But I guess for the listeners at home, if they've somehow managed to live under a rock for the last decade of build-a-thons, I guess tell us the concept of the build-a-thon. Tell us what you guys love so much and why we keep going and doing those.
Oh, we see the Build-a-thon as the premier event in the world of competitive SCADA. This is something that we've coined that phrase, and it started out as a bit of something of a joke, and at this point, it's no longer a joke because it is huge. We had over 1,000 folks who watched the live stream last year. We have been, and the live stream is for the challenges, right? So this is the challenges leading up to the
Mhm.
build-a-thon, and so we have created something that I think is pretty unique in the industry. I hope others do too, right? We don't want to have a monopoly on this, but it is a really neat competition for folks who are experts at what they do, engineers to basically come in and say, we want to prove that we're the best of the best. We're going to come in, we're going to test our ignition knowledge a few months or a month before before ICC. So we're setting a month and a week before ICC right now. And so this is the competition for testing that knowledge that's going from 27 teams who all basically came in and said, sorry, excuse me. 1 second.
Bless you.
That one snuck up on me.
Mhm.
So 27 teams, premier integrators are allowed to compete. They basically apply to compete. And then they go through a series of challenges that are these fun games that are in a medieval setting that also test ignition knowledge. So you're going to need to do some scripting, and you're going to need to be able to answer some questions about different features inside ignition and go through all of that. And the top 2 from that end up competing in the live build-a-thon, which happens during ICC. Oh,
Mhm.
ICC, the first build-a-thon was me versus Travis. Yeah, that is the Team Kevin banner back there. If I, yeah, can get my finger right. And that Team Kevin, that was Team Kevin versus Team Travis. And we competed against each other the first year. Travis absolutely creamed me. He he took out. We were doing the pre-release of Perspective, and I configured something wrong, and Perspective wasn't as robust as it is because it was an early beta. And at one point, I showed my screen, and I clicked over to graph, and it went completely black, and I couldn't get it back. And that was it. Like I'd missed out on half the things that I was supposed to be showing. It very rightfully went to Travis. The second year, I came back and I destroyed Travis. And so we got to a point that it was 50-50, and we said, okay, let's bring some integrators into this. And we coached some of the teams, but then we've evolved the competition from there to say these integrators, they're competing head to head against each other. We get from the 27 down to 2, and then they go at the beginning of the ICC. They work together to create each of the teams. All the team members on the team work together to create a solution. Two teams are working independently, and then they each show off their solution during the build-a-thon. During the live event, 1 hour live event, where they're going through. There's normally some sort of a twist that we throw into it, and then they are developing something on the fly, and then they are showing off what their solution is to the entire audience and giving them the opportunity to vote for the winner, and the winner gets bragging rights and the golf style jackets for the winners, trophies basically, and they are forever go down in ICC history as the winners of the 2025 Build-a-thon. No. It's a lot of fun. We do a lot of production value in it. We always have a music video that we include in the build-a-thon, and a couple of other videos, and a couple of surprises along the way too.
I think it may be the most fun thing that anyone does at a conference live. Yeah, I think it may be the most fun thing, and I'm really happy that it's evolved. I feel like year 12 of the Kevin versus Travis grudge match might have lost a little bit of the oomph we had those early years. So I am super happy that it's evolved. I'm actually excited that this is how we're going to go cap out ICC this year, is with the build-a-thon. So I'm excited to watch it. I guess my only wish is we didn't have to wait until the end of the week to go watch the build-a-thon. So I think that is super exciting. You guys stay tuned. We'll certainly have more coverage of the build-a-thon and our thoughts coming out on Manufacturing Hub as we go through there. We do have a couple of quick questions to ask Kevin to go wrap this up, to be cognizant of time. One other fun thing that's happened, or has already happened this year, is a student build-a-thon, which we'll hopefully be able to go cover some more of. And we might actually be able to go get some of the students who will be there on to go learn about those early experiences, because I think that's very fun.
The winners will be at the conference.
I think that's very fun. Absolutely. So Kevin, we want to go wrap up by asking you the same questions that we go ask everyone. And longtime listeners know that this first one is always my fun, is always fun for me. But it's to predict the future. So Kevin, can you go predict the future? I mean, we'll make it easy, right? Well, like, what does the next 2 to 3 years of ICC look like?
Of ICC, I might go a little wider than that. So ICC is going to, I think, follow. One, it's an evolution of what we do at the previous ICC, and also always uses customer feedback. But I think that the evolution of ICC, to me, is largely an evolution of Ignition. And we highlight a lot of the new things that are happening in Ignition, and current state of the industry and state of how Ignition's being used. And I think that where Ignition's going in the next couple of years is going to influence that in a big way. I think a lot of what we're seeing around AI right now, and all the connections to ways to get data back and forth, and there's a lot of traffic about MCP and other exciting things that are happening in that space. I think that you're going to see projects evolve in a way that are going to be taking advantage of these new technologies. And that's kind of an obvious statement to a certain extent, but I think that the amount of power that we're seeing from these things can't really be underestimated. And so we get a lot of excitement out of seeing these Discover Gallery projects that are showing off the best of the best of what people are doing with Ignition, how they're using it, what the cutting edge looks like in the state of industrial automation. And I think that you'll continue to see that evolve in some of these community sessions that are there. The IA band is going to be at ICC this year, and we're going to continue trying to make that better and better as time goes on. I'm one of the founding members there, so that's always exciting. We are going to, I expect, continue to expand every year. We have room for, I don't know if it's 20,000 people. I don't know if it's that big, but there's a lot of room at Safe Credit Union Conference Center, the downtown Sacramento Conference Center. And I think we're going to continue growing. I think that's going to be a huge thing too. So I would expect this year, if it's 1,500 people, great. And then if next year it ends up being 2,000 and the next year it's 3,000, I think that we're doing our best to keep it feel like a small conference with a lot of materials, while still allowing it to expand and, you know, providing it for everyone who wants to be there. So I think that you can be excited about what will be evolving there, also based on everybody's feedback. And I realize we only have a couple of minutes left. Sorry, I took took a bit of time, but yeah, you have one more question, right?
Yeah, no, I guess two quick questions. One for some career advice.
Yeah.
So, outside of people going and downloading Ignition, what's the best career advice that you have for folks, Kevin?
Find your passion. That is my best advice. A lot of the most successful people that I've seen in the automation industry and in just about any industry, but especially in automation, are folks who are really excited about what they're doing. And so if they get into, and a lot of my experience at this point and for the past decade is Ignition, centric, but if they're getting into the Ignition designer and they're saying, I love doing this, I really want to figure out how to do this, I want to create an application that does this and this and this, and then they create that and they celebrate that win, right? That can fuel the next fire for the next thing that happens. And become folks who are inside companies where they can find some of those opportunities where they can be excited about the things that they're doing next. Somebody says, oh, I wish we could do something like that. Somebody has an idea, say, well, I know how to do that. I know Ignition. I can build an application. I did that this last weekend, right? Just for fun. And I created something that's similar to that. Give me a few hours. I can throw this thing together. That can make a big difference for us or maybe it's worth just experimenting with. And I'll create something and we'll toss it if it doesn't work, right? Or if it's not what we need, right? But that rapid innovation and excitement about what people are doing, like find your passion, find your excitement with things, because that's going to make your life a lot easier, because you'll be excited about what you're doing. And then it'll also show other people where your value really is, because if it lines up, it's just such a good marriage. And if you don't have that passion, find out, explore that a little bit, figure out what are you passionate about and how does that line up with where you're at.
No, perfect. I love that. Last question for you as we're wrapping up is, how can our listeners help? Who should reach out? Who are you looking to connect with, Kevin?
Anybody. We're in every industry that has a U.S. tax code, which is basically everything. We're over 140 countries, basically the entire industrialized world. We're everywhere at this point. Please reach out if you think that we can help in any way. We would love to talk to you. We've got a solution suite that basically runs the whole gambit from everything from small HMI or data collection systems up to entire enterprise systems, covering that industrial integration. Basically, going forward, we're seeing ourselves as the cornerstone of a lot of companies, industrial automation, basically their strategies, their solutions, their overall picture of where they're going in the future. And so if you don't know what that looks like for you and you want to understand what it could, or you want some advice, or you want just to talk to somebody, we're friendly too. We care about people. So very approachable. Yes, just reach out. We'd love to talk to anybody and everybody.
Awesome. Kevin, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for coming and hanging out with us this Wednesday afternoon. Again, if you're already not following Inductive Automation and Kevin, please go do so. Make sure you're following Manufacturing Hub and Vlad and myself, and come spend Thursday afternoons live with us. If you're watching on YouTube or in podcast format, you guys are great. Please do the like and share and subscribe and all of those other things so you can follow all